Yeah, hey now. Good morning, PASW staff, clients, friends joining us for a lovely Wednesday. This is going to be a really fun day today. I figured, since that was a tough one, we should take a field trip today. Have a kind of a fun time and look at a gentleman, instrumentalist, record producer, philanthropist. When I think of music and philanthropy, I think of this man. And he's just wonderful. He's a wonderful person. I mean, I don't know him. He might not be, but I think he is. And his music is just so fun and great. Today we're going to look at the very talented Herb Alpert. Herb Alpert was born in 1935. He's 85 years old. He's still alive today, and not only a really great musician, great producer, great person who could recognize talent along with his partner Jerry Moss. So we're going to take a look at his life because it's an interesting life, and we're just going to have a kind of a fun, groovy 1960s. Mexican sounding, you know the drill. It's just gonna be spectacularly groovy. So he grows up in Boyle Heights, or he's born in Boyle Heights, rather. So he's a native. He's an LA native, but he grows up in the Fairfax district. Parents are musicians. He's Jewish. They're immigrants, and he picks up the trumpet at age 8 at Melrose Elementary School, like Melrose in La Brea. And this is like in the 40s, right? And that's and he also has a great music appreciation class, and he really begins to take a lot of value in music and the trumpet in particular. He was a pretty good trumpet player, actually. I mean, he studied classical trumpet, and a guy from the New York Philharmonic came every week or something like that to the Alpert house in the Fairfax district and taught him classical trumpet. And so he goes to Fairfax High. He marries his high school sweetheart. He's kind of bouncing around. He knows he wants to do music, and he's not sure where that's going to fit in. He goes to USC for a few years, but then doesn't really vibe there that well. And then he says that he realized that there were trumpet players much better than him. He was really interested in jazz music and early popular music. So this, was probably the 50s, and he saw a lot of jazz and was really influenced by Charlie Parker and Miles Davis, people that we've talked about. But he said a lot of trumpet players were a lot better than me, and he's like, if I didn't come up with my own style, I was never going to be a professional. And that's what we talk about a lot in this class, is style, individual style. We need technique, of course, and we need heart and feeling, and that hopefully will create a style. So what's his style going to be? And it's a visit to Tijuana. That's where he goes. He goes to these bullfights, and he hears mariachi bands playing at the bullfight, and he said that this inspired him he wanted to find a way to express the sounds he was listening to during this bullfight, and the mariachi sounds, and all these brass musicians, and this fanfare, and crowd cheers, and he was very influenced by this moment in Tijuana, whether it was one or several moments. I don't know how many times he went down there. and because of this, he came up with this song, "The Lonely Bull," which was incredibly successful. So he records "The Lonely Bull" as a single, and it spread through radio DJs, until it became a top hit in the fall of 1962. And this is when he forms Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. But actually it was just him. And what he did was he overdubbed the trumpet. So he tries to do this at a recording studio, but because of union rules, I guess back then at least, you couldn't overdub yourself. So he's working in his garage, and in the garage he's overdubbing it, the trumpet parts, to create harmony, right? But he does it, and I don't know how he did it back then, slightly out of sync, so it sounds like there's really two trumpet players instead of, if it sounds completely in sync, it almost sounds, mechanical. But because he's slightly shifting it, he's creating this it's sounding like two trumpet players. So he's doing this by himself in the garage, and it becomes a huge hit. And he starts forming with Jerry Moss, A&M Records, which is Alpert and Moss, which of course everyone's heard of A&M Records. I mean, they signed so many people. In 1962, they formed this record company because he feels he wants to give artists, independence and freedom, even though he's a young guy. I mean, but this was just something in back in the day when you could be in a room and say, well, we're going to start a record company, and you have the freedom to sign acts and also turn down acts. Like, they turned down the Beatles, actually. So while he's a record producer, he's also got his band. He hires session musicians to become the actually Herb Alpert Tijuana Brass Band, because as we know, you can't overdub live. You can only play one trumpet at a time, right? So with these guys, they debut in 1965, and they become one of the highest paid performing acts ever. What are we hearing? We're hearing the Latin, Mexican mariachi sound, but with popular music, right? He's smart because he's using songs, Burt Bacharach songs, Beatles songs, some of the best songs going on in pop music, but he's really creating his own style, and it's hard not to be kind of enchanted by this style. Looking at the year 1965 because we like to do a little history of when Tijuana Brass debuted their big album. So their big album is Whipped Cream and Other Delights. It's a heck of an album cover, right? You've probably seen that cover, even if you haven't heard any of the music on that cover. Very, very provocative and very inappropriate, but because it's music history, will show the album. Might want to get the kids out of the way though for this. But I was looking at 1965. Okay, can I just tell you a few of the songs that came out this year? Because I was just like, obviously I knew that there was some, but I was thinking and talking to Bonnie, like in the year 2020, and I'm really out of it, so I'm not a good one to even talk about. I couldn't really think of any songs maybe that came out that were, I don't want to say good, because I know that sounds very narrow-minded. I'm sure there was a lot of good music that came out this past year, but I don't know quite like 1965. Okay, so this is in no particular order. This was just Wooly Bully. Okay, not the best song, but Wooly Bully's big, right? Sugar Pie Honey Bunch, Four Tops. I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. You've Lost That Love and Feeling by the Righteous Brothers. Downtown by Petula Clark. The Beatles come out with Help. The Temptations come out with My Girl. The Beach Boys come out with California Girls and Help Me Rhonda. Sonny and Cher come out with I Got You Babe. The Supremes come out with Stop in the Name of Love. The Byrds come out with Mr. Tambourine Man. These are just some of the songs. I couldn't name them all because, I mean, gosh, it's a lot to edit. Just what you just saw took a really long time, just so you know. But I mean, I don't want to say music was better back then, but music was better back then. So if we're thinking of the late 60s, like we've talked about the Rolling Stones a little bit, talked about the Doors, you know, the Whiskey Go-Go, the Beatles. His music's not sounding like this. So how is he so popular? It's very upbeat, positive sounding music. It's intimate, it's romantic, it's fun. It doesn't sound like the angst that the rock and roll people have, but that's still okay. Probably because it's, like, we go back to melody, because they were playing really good songs. And the arrangements were just really good and really fun. By 1969, they disband, and Herb Alpert he goes through a nervous breakdown. He's not sure. He said that fame and money, you know, was nice and it bought a lot of things, but it didn't bring him happiness, and he was miserable performing after a while, and got divorced from his first wife and really went through a lot of pain and suffering. Of course, he's been married to Lani Hall still, and she was the lead singer of Sergio Mendes' Brazil '66, because he signed them, you know, with A&M, along with, you know, the Carpenters. I mean, there's too many acts to name. But he couldn't play trumpet anymore, and he didn't know. He had a physical and mental block where he'd pick up the trumpet, and he didn't know what his purpose was, what he had kind of achieved everything. And you know, it's like there's only, you know, people want fame and money, and that's well and good until it's not, until you realize that there's got to be something deeper, and there are things way more important than that, as we know from, you know, every kind of cheesy, corny movie or television show, you know, that money doesn't buy everything and all that stuff. So he went through a lot of therapy, and he came out a stronger person, he said, of course. He felt that he really wanted to give back to people. And so the 70s, 80s, and 90s, he had a pretty good solo career. And he always kept up with the times with, you know, artists like Janet Jackson, and he got into the disco movement. I know I did that in reverse order, but I mean, you know what I'm talking about. But in 1987, they decided to sell Jerry Moss and Herb Alpert, A&M, to Polygram Records, and they sell it for $500 million. But they would both continue to manage the label until 1993. But I mean, that's a heck of a payday. During this time, he's also becoming a serious abstract expressionist painter and sculptor. He has a lot of solo exhibitions, and he really learned to appreciate art. I mean, you know, it just goes to show you creativity is in everything. And I mean, he wasn't just a trumpet player. He was, you know, much more than that. But what I think really is cool is that he really wanted to give back a lot, and his philanthropy is just great. So he and his wife donated $30 million to USC. Okay, does USC need it? Maybe. Okay, but hear me out. 2007, he also, it's UCLA is the UCLA Herb Alpert School of Music, because he gives them $24 million. But in 2012, he gives more than $5 million to the Harlem School of the Arts in New York. And then in 2016, he donates $10.1 million to LACC, Los Angeles City College. that provides all music majors at the school with tuition-free education. And this is the largest gift to an individual community college in the history of Southern California, which I just think is so great, and the second largest gift in the history of the state. So he's giving back to all different communities in LA, well, in New York, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, lives in Malibu still and owns vibratos, a grill in Bel Air. I've been there a few times. It's very cool. It's swanky and very fun, but he owns that bar, and he loves playing trumpet and performing with his wife Lainey Hall still today. Great music and great guy. Really cool that he's still alive. Let's get into the program. All right, love you and miss you. I've said it all, said too much probably. And tomorrow we're going to be hanging out in LA doing something else. We're going to take another little field trip. Okay, have a great rest of the day and see you tomorrow.